Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Canopy Cast with your hosts Christopher McGurn, John Michael Price, and Michael O'Connor. Canopy Cast is a guest-based podcast that showcases an ecosystem of expertise through thought leadership and innovation. We bring people together to provide value for our audience through impactful stories and experiences. Canopy Cast, an ecosystem of expertise. Today's episode is brought to you by Oxenham Group. The Oxenham Group is a recruiting company that focuses on why a person takes a job and what makes them stay. They do this by understanding one's motivation, skills, and personal mission. Oxenham's proprietary process focuses on three main areas: sociologist-prepared questions, IBM-proven assessments, and Gallup-Clifton strengths. The combined results give the interviewer valuable insight into the potential for close alignment and the likelihood of engagement. For more information, please call 605-610-3026 or visit their website at oxenhamgroup.com.
Hey everyone, welcome to Canopy Cast. This is John Michael. With me are my two co-hosts, Michael O'Connor and Christopher McGurn. Today we have a special guest with us, Matthew Hunt. Welcome to the show, Matthew.
Hey, great to be here.
Yeah, Matthew's the founder of AutomationWolf, and great LinkedIn presence. Talk about engagement. He has a fantastic following. So Matthew, if you could just give us a little bit of a background for you. I know you started and exited several companies. Right now you're with AutomationWolf, but kind of give our audience a little bit of your story.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'd say that I kind of stumbled into entrepreneurship by mistake. And I think there's like four different types of entrepreneurs. There's those that stumble into it. There's those that are forced into it because they've been furloughed or laid off, or maybe they had a boss they hated, right? And there's some that have just born to be an entrepreneur, and others are kind of just get passed into it from a family member or something like that. I stumbled into mine. I was sort of stumbled into it because I was doing door-to-door sales and it sucked. And so I knew there was a better way, which kind of led me into my first business, which was, it turned into a lead gen business at the end of the day, but I built it initially to get myself leads because I didn't like knocking on doors for merchant services. And then from there, I learned a few skills and eventually opened a digital marketing agency in 2010 for small businesses, which then I merged that company into a larger agency in 2014, which then I was a partner in and scaled in. It was more focused on enterprise digital marketing services, and exited that one in 18, took a year off, and here I am back at it again. And now I kind of have like an agency for agencies, really. I mean, it's an agency for B2B companies, is what I'm doing. Yeah. So that's my journey in the short version of it.
Incredible. So it doesn't sound like complacency is in your vocabulary.
Well, listen, does anyone really want to retire? You know what happens? So I've had a lot of people who've exited this, because I've been doing this for 13 years. So I've known a lot of different people, particularly agency owners. And most of them, after they sell and they have about a year off, they just like wish they could go back to having a business again, right? So I always recommend to people that if you are thinking of selling, what might be better to do is try and set up your business where you can just take an extended leave of time. Because one of the things that happens is when you sell it and you spent a decade building it, and you decide to build another one, you realize, holy shit, it was so hard, and you're not conditioned anymore for all that hard work again. Because eventually you build it up where you have a team and you got people and things are moving along. It's actually not that bad. And then you're like, oh shit, I got to do this all over again from scratch. And it's like, I forgot how hard it is. And sometimes like naivety goes a long way when you're young or new to business. It's not always an age thing, but when you're new, if you don't really know the shit show that's coming your way from entrepreneurship, it's sometimes a good thing, because naivety goes a long way. Because if you'd known how hard it was going to be and how many late nights you're going to do and how long it'd be before you get a vacation, you probably wouldn't do it. You just be like, you know what? I think I'll just keep my job.
Yeah. It's too true. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that say like, oh, if I knew how much I was going to go through, I never would have started it, but I'm really glad I did.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely incredible to hear, different people's stories. And I really love how you touched on the difficulty of starting back up again, because a lot of people have that assumption that, oh, you make one business work and it goes well and you're set, and all you've got the money to start like 3 other things. You don't have to worry about it ever again. It's like, it's all taken care of for you at that point. And what people don't realize is, no, like, you make it with one, you've got to work twice as hard to make it with 2, 3, and 4. And, you know, all the mentality of, oh, you know, people right now, especially with COVID, you know, you've got your Jeff Bezos, your Mark Zuckerberg, and everybody's saying, oh, like, everybody's on social media more, everybody's using Amazon to order things. Those guys haven't made, like, they're just kicking back and watching the money come in.
Mm-hmm.
No, they right now they're working twice as hard as they were before to make sure that they can continue being successful and they can make, you know, the most out of the situation. So yeah, thanks for touching on that. Maybe let's go a little bit deeper into that. Like, what are some of the hurdles that you've come across that were unexpected when you were starting, you know, number 2, number 3, number 4?
Yeah, each business had its own hurdles, and I have to say that, you know, I had it easy because I was technically an early adopter. So if I was to like look at today, if I was to start a digital marketing agency, and it would be so much harder, right? Like, I mean, when I started, it was simple. Like, I mean, you stuff a bunch of keywords in a title tag and it ranks, right? I mean, like, people, you know, people had terrible, crappy websites and didn't even know anything. So it was really, really, really easy. You know, today you actually have to be good at what you're doing. Like, I couldn't have taken the skills I had back then and succeeded today. So part of it is luck and timing, and I guess being open enough to say yes, and brave enough and having the courage enough to say that I can do that too at some point. And what I mean about, I think one of the biggest hurdles for most people is just having the courage to just jump in and do it, and realize that if they're a little bit further ahead than someone else, or they can solve a problem better than other people. It doesn't even have to be that you have to solve the problem the best. You just have to be able to solve it better than some people. Then you have the right to create a business out of that, right? And I actually wanted to create my agency, the one I created in 2010, in like 2008, but it took me 2 years to find the courage to actually do it, you know, and really change the mindset. It took a gentleman to tell me, say, hey, Matt, you know way more than these small business owners. You certainly can get started and start charging them money for this. And I just didn't think, I just had imposter syndrome. I just was like, I don't think I could do this. And I was even still so scared in 2010 to do that I was giving away websites for free and charging $150 per month, which was going to go nowhere fast, right? So in 3 months, I realized I was just going to go broke, and I was working for like pennies per hour. And then I finally, you know, pulled on my big boy pants and started charging some real money and making some real money and building a business. But I had to get some results first. So I was scared, right? I was scared. And then once I got some confidence and got some results for some clients, and I had some clients who were like, turn it off, too many leads. I was like, okay, all right, I think I can do this. And then what happened was, you know, good work led to more work, which is how most of these companies get built. It's referrals, right? And so then people are like, shit, like once they meet someone who's really good at what they do, they start telling everybody. So that's like the first step, is do some good work, and believe it or not, people will tell their friends and family about your good work, and you'll get more business. And that's kind of how it starts, right?
Yeah, for sure. That actually poses another interesting question that I think a lot of businesses struggle with is, you know, upfront, you know, whether it's websites, you know, software, specifically that realm, but also marketing, design, anything like that, that is a business to business service. You kind of have to do that grind work up front to show people, hey, we have what it takes. And, you know, like you're saying, you're giving away websites for free, and then, you know, 150 a month. What was that transition like with the clients that you had when you said, hey, I've got to charge more? What was the response there? Did you keep most of them? And you know, kind of what was that reaction? Because I think a lot of businesses go through that, where they've got to do, you know, fixed cost software projects that end up, you know, going terribly wrong, you know, just with, you know, the monetization, or, you know, they've just got to put in 3 times as much time on a marketing project that they thought they would have to. And to keep the client happy, they can't charge them for the extra hours. What was that like in that transitional phase?
Yeah. So what's really interesting is this, it's not even like the first time I ran into that hurdle. Like, so it would have been, but it was a reoccurring theme over time of charging and how to charge more. And I would say that one thing is, if it's an agency type client, if you don't bake in sort of a performance based part to it, then you're always going to have a hard time upgrading your fees. So what I mean by that is, you can only like charge, each year you can really only kind of increase your pricing by so much before people are like, whoa, what's going on? It just weirds them out, even though you might deserve it. And even though you might be generating way more money for them, it's a difficult thing to increase. But if you bake it in from the beginning, where you have some sort of base flat fee or retainer, and then tie the rest of the income to performing, then you can do very well. And sometimes you can do even better than you would just trying to do a straight retainer. Now, it's different for every industry. So how you do your pricing is got to be unique to what you do. So the way if you're specific with chiropractors is one thing. If you're doing enterprise, is completely different. And depending on where you are, sometimes you have to have different pricing based on the organization you're talking to. So here's what I mean. Let's just take a small business owner as an example real quick. Okay. So let's just say you have it's a lawyer client, and you go, hey, you know what? The retainer is $5,000 per month, which is like fine, but this lawyer, you're getting them, I don't know, 200 leads. They're getting 200 leads per month before they bet you. And then all of a sudden, a year later, you're driving them, 2,000 leads per month, which is actually a real story that literally happened to me. Okay. And then I'm like, hey, we're doing such a good job. We're doing all this work. I want to move you to 10 grand per month. And it's like, whoa. Well, you're doubling your retainer. But it's like, whoa, but I didn't just double your leads from 200 to 400. I doubled it from 200 to 2,000 a month, right? But if I baked in, say, look, it's a $5,000 base retainer, and then what you're going to pay me is $50 per lead, figuring out what it is for everyone that's over 200. If you're cool with that, because they're already paying that now, that's the performance they're getting now. Or you could bake something in. It's like, you know what, like the first $5,000, I'll take it to 200 to 400, but everything above 400, you'll pay me an additional $50 per lead. Well, now I would have baked in the growth with that, right? And the value into that. So how you make your agreement from the beginning is important, but you want to always make sure you have a bit of a royalty or a performance-based component to what it is that you do. And when it's kind of like a way of getting like royalties or ownership in a company without necessarily having royalties or ownership in a company, that you can be tied towards the growth. And that's important. Now, you can't do that for everyone. When I was working with Fortune 100 companies, it's not going to happen, man. Like, they have SOWs, MSAs. There's a process. Some companies will only do, project from project. Others want a 5-year commitment, right? So you're going to have to figure out how they buy internally. If they have procurement, then there's going to be a certain way that they buy, and you're going to have to work within that model to get the deal. But it's 100% worth it. I've had deals where the contract's $500,000 per year for 5 years. That's a great deal, man. And it takes a long time to close that. It's all relationship based. It sometimes takes years, but it's 100% worth it, as opposed to any of some small business owner. I mean, you can close them in one call, right? And it doesn't have to be particularly warm. The relationship helps, but it's just a different thing. So you have to figure out what it is for your particular business that the right model is. But whatever you think it is, okay, whatever pricing you think is the right pricing, I can guarantee you most of the time, you need to double it, whatever you think it is. Because what most people don't realize when they're starting out, they go, oh, I'm charging $5,000 per month, and that's fantastic. Well, that's great now with you and your small team. But once you go from, having your small team and contractors, or you and 5 or 10 people, it looks like it works great. But once you add on an office that's $30,000 per month and 100 people, all of a sudden that $5,000 per month doesn't look too good. There's no margins anymore. There's no more room for growth. So at some point you have to do that. And I remember being in business going, oh shit, we have these $60,000 per year clients at $5,000 per month, and they're just not profitable anymore. And you have to do one of two things. You have to go, you either drop them, or you got to get them to upgrade, right? If they want to stay with you. So it's always been a reoccurring theme. Pricing is really, really difficult, not an easy thing to do at all. But I would advise, whatever you think you want to charge, charge twice as much.
Yeah, that's a really good rule of thumb. I know we just had a podcast not that long ago, specifically with creatives and pricing, and how creatives always have such a hard time pricing themselves. But I think, it's also very true for entrepreneurs and getting started, and you always want to put yourself lower to be able to get those jobs. But at the same time, are you going to be able to deliver on the quality you're promising if you're charging, such low prices? As well, you're going to have a lot of people looking at you saying, that's way too low, I'm not going to get the quality I want. And
It's true.
so, yeah, it's a hard balance, right?
Yeah, they can judge you on pricing. So I'll give you an example. I remember the first time I quoted an enterprise business on how to build a website, and I didn't get the deal because just literally on the price. So they're building a simple WordPress stacked website, like really basic stuff at the end of the day. But because they're enterprise, I made it like, oh, 20 grand, And I didn't even think, I thought that was a lot of money at the time. And they ended up buying a website that was the exact same thing, took them 2 years to build it and paid $200,000 and didn't hire me when I could have built it in just 90 days or 120 days with them for 20. But because the price was so low, they couldn't take me seriously. Right. And so that was like a big learning lesson for me, is you have to know who you're pricing and what you're pricing. And then also the best creatives always anchor it to performance based. So the best copywriters, or even the best like creatives in general, look at the Harmon brothers who do like those short viral videos. Like these guys, like they don't get, they charge a flat fee, but then they benchmark like what you're doing before. And the growth that you have, you're going to pay a percentage on that growth. And so that's how they make like a $1 million or $2 million, or if they have a big hit, sometimes $5-10 million in one go, because they anchored it to being super creative. And that's one of the hardest things to do. But if you can get a track record of being really good at being a good creative or a good copywriter, and I believe they exist in the same realm, those two people, but then you can make some serious money. But again, most people, it's a confidence and mindset issue. They're scared to do that deal. They're just used to trading their time for dollars, and they don't see it as a value thing, and they just position it in a way of lower status. And part of it is you got to have a track record, right? I mean, it's hard to come out of the gates, have the confidence and do that. But if you can get a couple case studies underneath your belt, then you can start to demand that kind of pricing with it, right?
Yeah, and I think that's so well said. I think you're hitting on something very, very relatable and very common for so many people. And, something that's been an interesting challenge really from what I've seen, because I'm our creative guy, so I'm overseeing, the logos and all of that stuff. Something that's so difficult is, and I want your thoughts on this. There's so many places out there that, work is mass produced for such a cheap such a cheap cost. It's ridiculous. Like, for example, like there's so many websites out there where you can get you can get a logo for $50, $25. That's a decent looking logo. So like how do you market yourself? How do you price yourself as an agency, where it's like you need to charge agency rates. You can't devalue your work. You're also trying to build a portfolio, and you're competing with people who don't value their work, make pretty decent work, and charge $25 for it.
Yeah.
And they spend 12 hours, or at least they say they spent 12 hours on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you compete with that?
Yeah. Well, so I do have an answer for that.
I would love to know that.
So look, there's a couple things that are in place. Okay. So when it comes to charging more, the reality is a couple things. One is you have to pick better clients. So part of it is you, right? So if the challenge that most creatives or most people have is they don't take control of their leads and their sales, and they're not specific about it. They usually end up kind of feeding off of referrals or inbound marketing, which is both unpredictable. So 100% unpredictable. And even then, sometimes people try to take the reins on this horse, and what they'll do is they'll go, okay, I know who my niche is, and they do some prospecting, and they get a client, they get busy fulfilling it, right? So then they stop the prospecting, and then they go back and they go, oh shit, my pipeline's dried up again, because clients turn or the projects end or whatever the situation is, but they end up going through this feast and famine situation. So all of them create feast and famine. Inbound does, referrals do, and so does like inconsistent prospecting. So the first thing you have to realize is like, okay, I need to pick a vertical that I can specialize in that I really like, and ideally one that likes to pay lots of money, right? Because if you're going to do the same work, you might as well get paid more for it. And so I learned this lesson from serving tables. I remember at 24, I kind of had my first serving job. It was at like a cafe, a 24/7 cafe, and an average table would spend somewhere between 80 and $100. And I would work like an 8-hour shift, and I'd hustle. I'd be turning tables really fast. Like it was one of these churn tables type environments. But I'd walk out at the end of the night after I tip out the kitchen, the bus boys, and all this stuff, like $120, and I thought, oh, that was a pretty good job. And then the manager there pissed me off. This is how you know I'm an entrepreneur. So I quit. So because I thought I was good at my job. I've always been a little bit had a chip on my shoulder, a little bit of an ego, but I don't like being told what to do. And so they were trying to push me around. I just said, well, fuck you, you do this. And then I went and got a job immediately just a couple blocks away in a really wealthy area called Yorkville in Toronto. And I started doing fine dining tables. And I would have, instead of doing like, flipping 50, 60 tables in an evening, all of a sudden I had 2 tables and I was walking on a minimum of $400 a night. And then they had a bar afterwards. I was making $400,000 a night doing the same work. And I was like, what the fuck? I was working way harder at the other place. We're doing the same thing. We're still serving food. I'm just dressed a little fancier and I'm serving higher ticket stuff. So if you're gonna do something, first thing you want to do is go to the niches that are willing to pay more money for it, right? So there are certain categories of there. So that's one. So choose that wisely. Of course, you have to like the niche too. So like you have to be passionate about it and you have to like those people. Like sometimes they're just not your tribe. So like you have to love what you do as well too. There's a balance between finding the right people and that. Like, so for me, I've had, small businesses and enterprise. And here's what I've learned is, yes, I make more money with enterprise, but it's not my tribe. So I've moved away from it. But yeah, I don't really like really small businesses either. I'm sort of somewhere in between, that mid-sized sort of business where they have a little bit of experience. They understand about investing in their business, but they're not enterprise, and I can't work with the entrepreneur. So I found like my sweet spot. They've got some money and I really like them. So that's what I recommend to people is that's the first step. The second step is, now that you know who they are, you have to build a strategic list of them. Like, these people are not invisible. There's so much technology today and ways to find their information, whether it's on LinkedIn or email or Facebook Messenger or direct messaging them as Twitter or Instagram. It doesn't matter. They're not invisible. And so what you need to do is build a list, and then you need to find an automated way to start conversations with them and getting them to know who you are as a brand. Now, this is where people fuck it up, okay? So this is really good. Most people who do cold outreach, they try to sell their stuff. And what you have to remember is, when you do cold outreach and someone doesn't know you, you're a stranger. And what does stranger mean, guys? It means danger, right? I mean, we've been taught this since we were like 3 years old, and I teach my kids this as well too. You don't know someone, like, don't talk to them, stranger danger. But yet everybody tries to do this cold outreach and sell their stuff, and they're not acknowledging the universal law that you're a stranger. And people only buy from people that they know, they like, and they trust. Right. And what people forget this, and they're not used to it, mostly because they've been getting their business through referrals or inbound marketing. And they forget that those people are kind of warm. So it's been easier to sell. And then they finally go, oh shit, that's not very predictable. So now I need to do cold outreach. But then they do cold outreach and they go, oh, and they hit a wall. And they're like, this is like not fun. Everyone's just saying no to me. And on top of that, you feel all the no's with cold outreach because it's emotionally raw. When you do referrals, you only hear from the people who want to talk to you. When you do inbound, you didn't hear from the 1,000 people who didn't click on your ad, or the 1,000 people who didn't reach out to your contact form after reading your article, even though they saw it. You only heard from the 1% who actually like it connected with. So it feels good, right? So everyone goes back to like wanting to do this inbound marketing or referral marketing thing because it feels good and it's safe, but it's unpredictable. So you're now stuck in the same situation again. So really what has to happen is you have to realize, no. Cold outreach is the right strategy. Okay, it's very predictable and controlled, but it's the offer that needs to change, right? You need to have a different offer. It's not an offer to sell your stuff. That's a huge mistake. You trying to sell your stuff, they don't know you. So you have to acknowledge, oh, I gotta cross this chasm, and I gotta get them to, know me, like me, and trust me, right? And so that's the question you need to answer. And so the best offer to do that is really, there's two strategies to do, and they should be used in tandem. One is to offer community, okay? And the other one is to do ego bait, which is basically to interview them. So just like what you guys did with me, right? Here I am with you. And so a couple things happen here from this. So most people don't understand this. You guys probably do, but I find that most people still don't understand it to the depth that they actually really need to understand why these are the two main strategies they want to lead with, okay? So you lead with community first, and it has to be a private community, okay? And the reason why it must be private is the same reason why people belong to private ski clubs, private golf clubs, private yacht clubs. This is why people spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a year just to rub elbows with the famous and wealthy elite to go with Richard Branson to Necker Island, right? It must be private. So that's step one. Step two, it must be a specific group of people, because birds of a feather flock together. People want to be with other people like them. So entrepreneurs want to be with other entrepreneurs. But more specifically, digital marketing agencies want to be with other digital marketing agency owners. CTOs want to be with CTOs. SEOs want to be SEO people, right? It doesn't matter what it is you want to do. Contractors want to be contractors, heart surgeons want to be other heart surgeons. Like it doesn't matter what your niche is. Just know that it needs to be specific, and they want to be around with each other. It's also a really safe offer when you offer community. It does two things for you that's really important. Is this interesting? Should I keep going?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So it's two things you want to do. So one is it allows you to leverage the universal law called the power of numbers. Okay. So what I mean by this is it's a safe offer that more people will say yes to. So you have two marketplaces. There's the whole market, and then there's the in market. Okay. The in market is that 1% to 3% of people who can or might be looking to buy what it is that you sell, right? However, there's the whole market that can buy from you, but they're either not aware or they're just not looking for it right now. The challenge is when people are doing cold outreach and they're trying to sell their services, like they don't know where someone is. Like you could be 6 months early, 6 months too late, or they're just not even aware of the problem yet. So it's a moving target, which is a terrible thing to try to hit. It's very, very hard to hit, very frustrating. But if you make an offer like community, it's appealing to the whole market. So for example, like, let me say this, let's say you sold website design services. It's very similar to kind of what some of the work you guys do. You put a random 1,000 business owners into a room and you said, hey, who here is looking for a new website or redesign a website in the next sort of 30, 60, 90 days? Well, you're going to get 1% to 3% of the room who raises their hand. Well, if you change the question to this instead, you say, oh, who in this room is looking for a new website between now and the end of their entrepreneur career, right? Well, now everybody's going to raise their hand because at some point they need a new website, right? So they can all buy from you, but you're just making it the one specific offer. Instead, if you invite them to a private community of a tribe of people who are like them, they're going to want to join it. They're more likely to want to join it. So therefore, when you do your cold outreach, instead of getting reply rates of like 3% or 1%, all of a sudden you're getting reply rates of 30 and 40 and 50%, right? Right. So the numbers are in your favor now. And now you put them in that community, and the community does something else for you. It allows you to leverage what's called the network effect. Are you familiar with the network effect?
A little bit.
A little bit. Okay. So all the best businesses in the world leverage the network effect. Uber uses it. Amazon uses it. Facebook uses it. LinkedIn uses it. I can go on and on and on. Basically, the network effect is physics. And if you look it up, you want to look up Reed's law or Metcalfe's law. And all it means is that the gist of it is this: it's any system that gets better the more people you add to it. That's it. That's all it means. So it means that you're no longer the bottleneck. And so here's the great thing about a community is you can add more and more and more and more people to it that you want. And it operates pretty much on its own without you. What ends up happening is it actually ends up kind of working as it follows the growth of a group and a community follows the same sequence as what's called the Fibonacci sequence, which again is math. And so the Fibonacci sequence is just like, it's kind of a spiral shape, and it's kind of like compound interest, but not quite. So the numbers go like 1 + 0 is 1, and then 1 + 1 is 2, and then 1 + 2 is 3, and then 2 + 3 is 5, and then 3 + 5 is 8. And so it kind of has that compound interest like growth, but what ends up happening is it takes on this flywheel effect. But what happens with the community is just like a storm, and a storm actually takes the shape of the Fibonacci sequence. Black holes in the universe do it. It's in plants. The most beautiful people in the world have the numbers of the Fibonacci sequence on their face. It all connects that way, right? But the Fibonacci, if you think of it as a storm, you're the eye of the storm, and there's all this activity around you because you're the host of the community. So you're the anchor to the group. So guess what ends up happening through that anchor? Everybody gets to know you. They start to have an opportunity to like you, and they start to trust you. And the way you amplify that is by leveraging the second strategy, which is the interview strategy, which you guys are doing right now. And the interview strategy is really, really powerful because you end up doing what other really smart people have done for years and years and years. Everybody probably, you guys know who Oprah is, right?
We're not that young.
Yeah. Do you guys know who you know who Tim Ferriss is?
Yes.
Joe Rogan?
Oh yeah.
Right? How about Tom, right, from Impact Theory? We can go on and on and on about all these different people. Here's a whole bunch of people who are literally experts of nothing. They're experts of nothing, but what they're really good at doing is finding talent and smart people and interviewing them, right? Think about it. Tim Ferriss wrote 4 best-selling books on the backs of other experts. All he did was like interview them and take notes and put it into a book. A big giant book like this, and people bought it. Like it's crazy, right? And then he basically got to up his influences and his celebrity status based on other people's authority and other people's audiences. See, what people don't understand, everybody always wants to teach us, like, everybody teaches OPM. And if you're in business, they're like, hey man, you got to focus on OPM. They're other people's money. No. That's not what you got to focus on. The most important thing actually focuses on OPA, other people's audiences and other people's authority. Because here's what happens is you come into your community or the space, like, right? Ideally, a focused community is more important. You have you, that's right here, okay? And then you have an expert. And then there's you, and then other expert. And there's you, and other expert, and there's you, and there's other expert. Kind of like this is a community in a way, right? The podcast. But what ends up happening is the experts come and go, but the only thing that people remember is the host. So it's John, Chris, and Michael. Right? And so what ends up happening is everybody gets to know, like, and trust you. And you're building what's called trust equity. You're banking trust equity with these people, kind of like Oprah has or Tim Ferriss has. And because you're depositing all this trust into the bank over and over and over and over again, whenever you decide to make a withdrawal, it's like a license to print money. Think about it. Oprah, even today, she's been out of the game for a long time. She gets on Twitter. I really like this company. They're barely surviving and struggling because of COVID-19. Here's why I love the products. Everybody go check them out, right? Boom. They go from barely surviving to thriving within 24 hours based on a tweet from someone who's been banking trust equity for 25 years, right? Through interviewing other experts, not being an expert on anything, and by building community. Look at Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan just sold his stuff to Spotify, right? He's exclusively at the end of the year, only going to be on Spotify. $100 million contract. Why does Spotify want that? The power of audience and community. Now, you don't have to be that big to be really successful at this. It's not about having a huge community. In fact, this is the great thing, is you can have a really small community of just 100 people that's really focused, who are really specific people. And if you just add value like that to them, they'll buy anything from you. And so that's what ends up happening, because your price doesn't matter. How good you are at your job doesn't matter. People don't buy on that. They buy based on trust. Most of the time when people are buying you, it's based on a trust factor, and it has nothing to do with really understanding what it is that you do. So my answer to you is this: if you want to be able to charge more money and charge whatever you want, what you really want to focus on is trust equity and community. And you want to figure out a predictable way to build that where you can automate it at the end of the day. And that's how you make yourself, like, you move yourself from the red ocean to the blue ocean. You don't have to worry competing. And in fact, you don't need to be really good at sales. You can be the worst salesperson in the world. If people love you and trust you, they'll buy from you. They'll buy from you like that, just like this. And so that's what I recommend to people today. That's the mistake that I hadn't done in the past. I sort of haphazardly done it at different times, but it wasn't until I took some time off and had a year away from all my businesses before I could connect all the dots. And I was like, oh, this is what I need to do. And you can still build great businesses doing it completely wrong. Like I built an 8-figure a year business doing it all wrong. So don't, I'm just saying, look, but it took me 13 years to get there. Right? I'm saying if you don't want to take 13 years, this is how you do it. And even Joe Rogan, who just got, just sold the rights to his podcast to keep doing it, it took him 10 years to get there, right? There's no overnight success. Like we always overestimate what we can get done in a year, but underestimate what we can get done in a decade. So what I recommend to people is you pick an audience that you can live in for a decade. And here's what happens and what I know. After having 4 businesses now, businesses come and go, services come and go, algorithms come and go, things change, right? And the business you think you have today is not the business you're going to have tomorrow. And so what you really want to do is have a specific niche, but still one that's big enough that has money that you can just anchor to. And then you'll be able to do other things. And the best businesses today, the smartest ones, they build that first. And then they ask the audience what they want to buy. They go solve the problem and come back and sell it to them. So the community decides what you build. And that's how you get success after success after success knocked out of the park, is by actually using that process. And there's lots of ways of hacking it, of course, through paid advertising, et cetera. But to grow it organically, really cost effectively, it's the easiest thing to do. And look how easy it is. Like you guys are doing it right now. You're leveraging someone else's authority, someone else's audience, right? And they're creating great content for you right now, all for free.
100%.
Yeah. And now you're going to take this and put it
Thanks.
somewhere else, right? Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, like it works, right? I mean, it works. And so
Yeah.
I think that's the fastest way to like hack authority, hack brand, up your influence, and make money. And it's super predictable. So that's the formula. It's really that simple. Anybody can do it. Of course, the devil's in the details, and there's like little things that you need to know to be able to do it. But that's it. Anyone can take that and run with it. And this is the information I wish I had, 13 years ago, because before I was trying to be the expert. I was trying to do all these other things and forcing the things. I was trying to force, these square pegs into round holes. Like it just wouldn't go, right? And so
I think it's absolutely brilliant. Like everything you just said, it was very eye-opening, very helpful and insightful, and I really appreciate it. And I think our listeners and viewers are very much the same way. But something that stood out to me is just, it's, how do I explain this? I think it's so, like, people overcomplicate it. The whole process. They try to hack into it. They try, like you're saying, they try to go around, doing this and that, rather than just sticking to this, and I think it's so, just the way you explained it, it's like, no, like just focus on the relationship, and people are going to buy from people who they like, respect, trust, etc. And it's just, it's so true. Like it's really, it's not that complicated. Like it takes time, it takes effort, it takes the hard work, it takes patience. But like at the end of the day, it's really not that hard. And like you said, like basically anyone can do that.
Yeah.
And I think, going off of that, one other thing I wanted to mention, like when you brought up Oprah, like I know for us, like me personally, and I think for the other two guys here, like when people say like, oh my gosh, like I love the podcast, like you guys have so much good stuff. It's like, I mean, thanks so much. Like that means a lot, but like, it's all our guests. Like you're saying, like riding off of, the authority, the credibility, the audience, the reputation, all of that stuff. It's an ecosystem of expertise is the one liner, but like, it really is an ecosystem of expertise. And that is what is contributing to the people. That is what people should be thanking, the guests for. We're just facilitating a conversation. We love it. We enjoy it. But like, at the end of the day, it's like, it's not about the three of us hosts. It's about, this episode is about you. This episode is about Matthew Hunt and who he is and what he does. Right.
You got it, man.
So it's yeah, like you're right. I'm just keep going, but it's
yeah,
so true.
you're 100% right. I mean, but think about all the biggest companies in the world. They don't create content. They enable it to happen. Facebook's not in the business of making content. Instagram isn't. Like, they're just in the job of enabling other people to do those things. So you're right. That's all you're trying to do, is remove friction from the situation and allow others to do that. Even in the community, getting them engaged and talking, they're doing 80% of the work for you, right? Like, you go away and other people answer people's comments and are helpful, and your job is just to start conversations and drop in expert interviews for them. It's like so simple, you know. Every once in a while, you just kind of drop in like, hey, by the way, we do this thing, and people connect the dots, because eventually they go check out your website, your service, and there's nothing better than people like reaching out and going, hey, I've been following you for a while, and like, you're amazing, and I'm just trying to find a way that I can buy from you. Like, how much does it cost? And then they're like, they're all nervous, and they're like, and then they find the price, like, okay, I could do that. How do I get going? You know, like, it's not even a discussion of you trying to convince them to do business
Yeah,
with you.
you already sold them.
You already sold them, just from being helpful and bringing them value and making those deposits, right? Like, I have another friend that does this too, and he's done a really good job. It's Mikhail from Funnelytics, and he built his business the same way. I don't know if you've heard of that brand before in that company, but he built it by creating a community while he was building his SaaS, and he wasn't quite sure what his SaaS was going to be, but he knew building a community and just adding value for a long time was going to be important. And we joke about it all the time. We're like, when he first put up his stuff, people just bought it without even reading anything on the page because of all the value that was there. Like, there's no way he said live and like purchases were coming through. Nobody read the landing page. Like, he could have put up anything at that point. It could have just been like a buy button, like, buy my mystery SaaS, you know? And then he even jokes about afterwards, like, people bought it and they're like, how do I use this tool? What is this tool? Like, what does it do? You know what I mean? Like, they're just like, he's like laughing, like he's like, did they not know what they bought? Like, and I'm like, no, man, they bought because of you, like, in the relationship with you. You could have put up like, donate me $100, and 1,000 people would have given you $100. It wouldn't have mattered. And he's like, you know what, you're probably right. And that's kind of like how it started spinning, this idea of like, that's what it's about. It's just trust. Like, it's that simple. Like, do I trust you or not? Like, because think about how you buy today too. Just think about how you make decisions. Like, we're not that bright as humans. Like, we kind of move towards pleasure and away from pain. And if it feels safe and we trust you, we just go, yeah, okay, let's go, you know?
Exactly. And this reminds me of something I always throw Michael under the bus. It's kind of like a running gag here, but like Michael always says this thing about what business in its essence actually is. Michael, please, once again, for our listeners and viewers, for Matthew here, what is business?
Business is just people helping people. It's just, it's all about that value. It's someone providing something that helps another person. And that's right. That's the end of the day. It's people.
Yep. I agree. Solving a problem. If you can solve a problem better than someone else, you have a business. Yep. That's it.
And it's by listening to you, it keeps hitting me like, it's about the person. It's about the person. It's two people helping each other, removing the friction, providing value. It's like, that's what business is. And so, Mike, here you go. That's why I threw you in.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that, the whole thing about, the friend who essentially could have said anything and I would have bought it. It's so true. One of my favorite stories that my dad always tells. He used to be he was a Vietnam vet, flew helicopters there, and then flew helicopter tours in the Grand Canyon. And they had this manager in the Grand Canyon, and he had amazing relationships with everyone there. He knew everyone super well, and he was about to leave. So he was about to leave the Grand Canyon and retire from that. But this manager who nobody liked, it was really just a mean guy and everything. And my dad kind of thought up this plan to pull a prank on him. And he went around to everyone in the office and he said, I need $50. I can't tell you what it's going to be about, but I'll tell you that you're going to be disappointed if you don't give me the $50. And he got $50 from everyone in the office. He got like several $1,000s and pulled this amazing prank. And it was just off the trust. There was no sell position. It was just like, hey, I know who you are. I know what you like. I know you'll be disappointed if you say no. So here you go. And that, like, I feel like exactly what you're saying. It's so true. If you have that relationship, if you have that trust where you can say to someone like, hey, I know this is going to help you, or I know you're going to enjoy this. It's like, it's huge.
You know what? I'm going to test that offer out now.
Ooh.
I'm literally going to test it out. I'm gonna put it into my program as like
All
a
right.
legitimate test, and I'm gonna use it as a test to see how much trust you have. So it's gonna be a test of like if people won't give you money and they don't know what it is, and
Yeah.
it'll be a test of how trustworthy you are within your own community. I'm literally thank you.
All right. Yeah.
I am
Well,
literally going to bake that in, and I love that. I'm literally going to make that the offer. It's going to literally say to people in the community, look, I have something that's really awesome. I can't tell you what it's for, but you have to send me $50. I promise you won't be disappointed. But if you send me $50, I'm going to send you this thing. And I want, and those that do, I'll teach people how to massively over deliver, collect those testimonials from people, do it again, but next time make it $100, right?
yeah.
And keep upping it. And so then people will just see all the testimonials from other people like, listen, it was amazing. It was the best $50 ever spent. You have to spend it and see how long I can keep the cycle going while increasing the price. I'm gonna totally test this
All
out.
right.
I love that.
That's awesome. So we have a royalty agreement, right? No,
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
I'm kidding.
It's been recorded. You got it. No problem. That's so
Oh,
funny.
man.
Yeah, you know what's
Yeah.
interesting? The reason why, but it sounds so simple, guys. But the challenge is, it's what's funny is everybody is struggling with it. So like, I this is what I sell. I sell like, I basically sell the people come to my website because they want leads. But at the end of the day, I have to convince them later. I'm like, look, you don't need leads. You need community and trust equity. And then they always have this like, oh, damn it. Because usually we don't have the business problem we have is usually something else, right? Like if you have a sales problem, it's really not a sales problem. It's a lead gen problem. You have a lead gen problem, it's really a positioning problem. You have a positioning problem, you really have a mindset problem, right? It's never the thing that we think it is. There's, the tip of the iceberg strategy, like, hey man, everyone's treating the symptoms that they can see above the surface, but really there's something much bigger underneath. And that much bigger thing, so many businesses struggle with this problem. And it persists like a lot. And what ends up happening is if you don't do these things, you end up taking on clients and customers that you don't really want to have because you don't have enough leads. You have the pressure of it. You end up doing all of these things where you end up selling your soul, or you end up trying to be salesy and slimy, and you end up doing kind of like, I mean, I don't really know this for sure, but I always call it the Grant Cardones, hard closes. And I learned all that stuff too. And it's terrible. Who wants to close someone? You know what I mean? Like, it just leads to a whole bunch of bad things. So it's important to eventually come to terms with the fact that you're going to have to do and build a whole bunch of goodwill for a long period of time before you see the returns and the riches that you're looking for. And there's no way to kind of hack it. It's just
a relationship, and it requires everything a relationship requires, which is trust, time, effort, patience, communication. I mean, it's a relationship.
Yeah. Like, do you want to get married or you just want to have a one night stand? Like, what are you trying to build here? Right. Like, I mean, there's so many analogies we can rinse and repeat over, but it always comes back to the same messaging over and over again.
Yeah.
So
I guess that poses a great question. If for anybody out there, go check out, AutomationWolf, check out Matthew Hunt on LinkedIn, especially. But, through your business, front page of your website, get 100+ B2B leads every month on autopilot.
Yep.
So are you offering people a SaaS that's going to get them leads, or are you offering people consulting? What is your process? So someone calls you, whoever's out there listening to this podcast right now, and they're like, you know what, I want 100 leads every month on autopilot. I don't have to worry about that. When they give you a call tomorrow, what are they getting? What process are you bringing them through?
Yeah. So my business, my business operates this way. On the front end, it's really strategy and consulting. At the end of the day, usually I'm changing people's mindsets and strategy. But the back end money is made in SaaS. So the problem is with SaaS in general is it's low ticket prices, just a race to the bottom. And I don't want to have that problem like everybody else. So a lot of the tools that I either have or use are readily available everywhere. Like if you look at the MarTech, study of how many sales and marketing tools are out there, like 2011, it was 150. The last study they did was 2019. It was 7,050 of them. So if these tools could really solve your problems, why do they keep making more of them? They all basically do the same thing more or less. And I just know that the only thing that everyone compete on is like, hey, I've got this new hack or feature, or I'm cheaper. And so people just leave. And I wanted a business where I could have sustainability, but leverage SaaS. So here I am with a company doing a very healthy MRR with just myself in one VA. And the reason I can do that is because I'm leveraging SaaS and software. But I also know that SaaS and software is not the issue. It's how you use it. You put garbage into it, you get garbage out. So this is why people come to me. I fix their strategy first, make sure that they're worthy to use the software and the tech that I use, and then I make some money on the back end. So if I'm like looking at my whiteboard here, like on the front end, just on the community and like information stuff, an average client to me is worth $3,600. But once I add on my reoccurring, that's per year, like, because I continue to keep educating them and adding value. And then the software bumps up another $7,000 per year. And then those who do the done for you services with me are, range between $30,000 to $120,000 per year. So it's really easy for me to build $1 million business real quick on MRR because I only need 20 done for you clients. It's like nothing, right? And then I need, 50 people who are on the SaaS because I can charge more because I've added all the trust and the value. And then I only need 100 people to go through my information. Like, see how simple it is? So it just built, like, it's, pretty awesome to have a $1 million a year MRR business, right? AR off, a very simple system with no employees. Because here's the one thing I've learned with like having a lot of people. See, people, I think it's Biggie who used to always say it, mo money, mo problems. It's not it's not mo money, more problems. Like, actually money solves most of your problems. Actually, it's not revenue, it's actually profits. It should be more profits, you can solve your problems. But one of the ways to have more profits and less problems is actually the real saying is mo people, mo problems, right? So I've had organizations of 50, 70, 80 people, and I can tell you right now that the more people you add to your organization, the more problems you're going to have. Just people are challenging and not easy. We're humans. It's not an easy thing to manage. So if you can create a system that's more like a factory and a product, and using SaaS and leveraging some of these things, you can get some leverage there, which means you have more profits. And if you have more profits, then you can go and hire great contractors or smart talent to solve any other problems that you might have, right? And that's how you get momentum at the end of the day. So just like, look at all the wealthiest companies in the world, they're all backed on tech and leverage, right? Yeah. So, and sometimes you have to understand the concept of asymmetric risk to reward, which is, sometimes you need to spend some money for a while before you see the big upside on the other side, right? So, there's no one who knows that better than like Jeff Bezos. So if we take like Jeff Bezos, like in 5 years, okay, he was losing money, like millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, losing money, to now being, I believe the number was 3 times more profitable than his number one competitor, which would have been Walmart, in 5 years. Why? Because he understood a bunch of things. And now Walmart's playing catch up. So Walmart still does more revenue, but I don't care about revenue. I don't care that you're doing $300 billion and Jeff is only doing whatever, 30 billion or whatever it is. Jeff is at 11 billion profitability. Walmart's only at 5 billion profitability. And I say only with a B, like a billion is a big deal. And not that even matters. Like for most of us, it's not in the realm of what's important to us. Like, and money, all this money stuff, your MRR, all that shit doesn't matter anyways. It's all bullshit at the end of the day. It's like, are you happy what you're doing? Like none of that stuff really matters without some sort of happiness. But for some reason we do measure the success of a company based on revenue and profitability. And those are some of the key indicators of success and how you can measure success. But honestly, I don't even think that's necessarily should be the end goal of how you measure success for your company, period. I think it usually leads you, when I've done that, it hasn't given me the growth that I'm after. The mission needs to be bigger than you. Just like Simon Sinek says, we don't buy what people do, but why they do it, So you got to really figure out what's that greater mission at the end of the day for you and your company, right? And community does that. So as soon as you switch your mind to community, like it's funny. You start doing the right things and things start falling in place. Like all of a sudden the money just happens. It's a byproduct of doing the right things.
Yeah. I guess that poses a question for me. You know, I've been following you on LinkedIn, and it's impressive, you know, how engaging your community is compared to some people who have 2, 3, 4, even 5 times the amount of followers. What are some tips you have to offer those who are trying to grow their community right now to, you know, get more engagement? You know,
Sure.
what can you put out there that's going to cause people to engage in your content versus, you know, like what's different between post A and post B that it really flips that switch?
Yeah, well, there's definitely like tactical things that you can do. There are tactics that hack more engagement for you. However, the reality is just because you can get a follower or expand your network doesn't mean that you actually have a relationship with them. The goal is to get a relationship with them. So even like when it comes to community building, I encourage all new community owners to do things that don't scale initially. So doing quick 10-minute calls with people, like get offline, get offline and actually connect with someone is really important. And don't use it as an opportunity to try and sell your shit. Use it as an opportunity to like listen and be helpful and add value where you can. And just by having that immediate connection, now when someone sees your content, they're much more likely to engage into it, right? And engage with it. So I can guarantee you, like even right now, think about our conversation. Next time I post something and Chris and Michael and John, you guys see my content, what do you think the chances are that you're going to like it, even maybe before you even review it? You just might just click like, right? Yeah, and if anything, you're more likely to watch it or consume it and probably comment on it because now we have a relationship. So it starts small. That's how you start building it. The same thing with like Gary Vee. Gary Vee talks about all the time. He lives in the comments. And if you look at what he did for the first 10 years was he literally had these one-on-one conversations on a regular basis, right? Now, not all one-on-one conversations are created equal. So this is where people make mistakes. So what I would say is, look, you probably want to, just like there's a concept called the 100 dream clients, you also want to have 100 dream followers because some influencers are worth more than others, right? And so, you know, what I would do is I'd build that database because when someone, you know, I'll give you an example, like last night, Cher featured one of my posts who's on LinkedIn, who's a LinkedIn influencer, and her shout out to me is worth a lot more than Bob blah blah, right? You know what I mean? Like who doesn't really have any engagements going on. So you can be smart about it. So what I would suggest again is it comes back with like building a strategic list, right? Being intentional with it, engaging with those people social selling wise by like commenting on their stuff and liking it. Of course, you have to also pick your battle. There are some people they're just so big, they're never going to pay attention to you, right? Like it's just not going to happen. You're not going to start engaging with Tony Robbins and all of a sudden he's going to, you know, have a one-on-one message with you. It's just not going to happen. But you want to find kind of that influencer that's rising and growing, but not so big that you can't touch them. Build a relationship with them first so that when they engage with your content, it has a larger ripple effect that takes place, right? So now, that's not always the case. I think that if you have the time, like connect with anybody. Don't be a snob. That's not what I'm communicating here. Like, hey, you're not worthy enough of my time. And you don't know where people are going at some point. Just like if I have time and I can do a podcast like this, I say yes. It gives me a one-to-many leverage. I'm connecting with lots of people. It could be 10 people. It could be 100 people. It doesn't matter. So my background is theater. I've done shows with one person in the audience, and I've done shows with 50,000 people in the audience. I don't give a shit how many people were there. I'm going to do the same good job, whether it was one person that showed up or 100,000 people showed up. Now, of course, it's not sustainable to keep doing everything one-on-one. So you have to be a little bit smart, and obviously getting leverage in life is having a larger group of people to do it with. So get that part right first. And then the second part would be not to actually, the easiest way to hack it is to lead with the interview strategy. And if you're not ready to do that regularly, one of the quickest ways to do it is actually launch a virtual summit. That way you can collect a whole bunch of content at one go and then use that to launch your podcast, use that to launch your community. It allows you to get a bunch of attendees to sign up who are the ideal people. You can invite them to for free. That's a really easy, simple way that you can work on something over the course of, you know, I'd say it takes 90 days to get one launched, but 90 to 120 days. And then you can launch one and use that as your launching pad into everything else. You'll build some strategic relationships. You'll get some great content from other people. You'll be able to up your influence by standing around all these important people. You'll be able to grab attendees, which then you can funnel into your community afterwards. And doing all of these things is what gets that kind of following and excitement and that engagement at the end of the day. So it's not about how many followers you have. It's about the engagement. Look at the people who are talking with you and DMing you and other stuff. Like I've had content too, like silly content that I put up, and it gets a lot of likes and shares because it was stupid and silly and just kind of caught on. But that doesn't matter to me. I pay attention to the content that I put up, and then the ones that drive direct messages, because those are the ones that's when I know I got something good. And sometimes that content had like 10 likes and 15 comments, but then I got 10 direct messages. They're like, fuck, that was awesome, man. Like, thank you. That's what you want to pay attention to. Are you getting direct messages that are saying thank you? If you're not, then you're probably on the wrong track.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, that's exactly how, I started noticing you and ultimately reached out to see if you come on the podcast. And, thank you for coming on. It's been awesome content. I can't, wait to get that feedback that you're talking about from you.
Yeah, you guys are smart. I wish I was as smart as you guys. You guys are way ahead of the game already. Like you've already got a lot of puzzle, you got all the puzzle pieces in the right place. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think we're approaching time. Mike, Chris, if you have any last questions, or Matthew, if you have any questions for us.
I just have one final question. What would you say, whether it was the first business, second, the third, fourth, what was your proudest moment, or where you're like, wow, this was the best experience, across that entire spectrum as a serial entrepreneur, because I think for the three of us as well, we're kind of trying to play that same kind of game as well. We're trying to branch out in many ways, figure out what are best ways to serve people across industries and stuff. What was the best moment for you, or is it something you're looking forward to?
So I think my most favorite moments always have to do with my internal team. So those are always like moments that happen with them that bonded us for life. Like most of my team members, my alumni, I feel that I'm pretty darn close with them all. Like I find them an extension of my family, really. So that's definitely one of the biggest highlights. And the second one is also there's certain clients, and some clients I wish I had done a better job on. I definitely have failed some clients in the past because I viewed them as clients, not as an extension of my family as well too. But there were some really huge moments. But the biggest thing that I'd say as a takeaway is that having a business and being an entrepreneur has been the most incredible way for personal development. Like I am a 1,000% better person than I was before I started doing a business. And even though it's been hard and not all of it has been amazing, I think if you want to be a better person, the fastest way to do it is start a business. It'll force you into becoming a better person, a more grateful person in general, and just more productive in the world, And the only other thing I'd say that it's really given me is the luxury of being able to have special moments with my family, to control is pretty spectacular, like I can, even though most entrepreneurs trade the 40-hour working week to work 80 hours, the reality is I am still in control. And if I choose not to, or I want to do something else, I don't have someone telling me what I can do. And for me, that's really satisfying. So yeah, I think those are some things I would leave some people with, some food for thought.
I love it.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. I had fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
Everybody listening, go check out Matthew, check out AutomationWolf. Looking forward to seeing what comes of this podcast. And
yep.
Thank you again, Matthew, so much for coming on, for your time, and for all of your advice to everyone tuning in.
Thanks for having me. Yeah. And you guys be
course.
sure to join my community. If you go to, it's actually called G Advantage. So it stands for Genius Advantage, which just basically means that I interview other geniuses and bring other people in. So we stand on the shoulders of giants, right? But if you want to apply to come on in, just go to gadvantage.com and you can apply. And if you write the right things, I'll let you in.
All right.
Awesome. We'll put all the links to your socials, your website, LinkedIn, everything in the show notes.
Thanks,
And
guys.
for everybody listening in, thank you for tuning into this episode. Until next time.